Sawadee-krap. Good evening, Zhanghao. We are still in July. It's pretty hot and humid when it's not raining, and when it's raining, it's a pretty heavy rain. We just dodged the big typhoon. I don't know the name of it. It just passed by. And the other thing that just passed is the large annual military exercise, the Hankwang, which was the largest on the record this time. And it kind of made me think about certain things, and maybe I'll talk about it. The topic over the past couple of years, and especially over the last 1 year, I've been seeing a growing number, or rather the number has grown, of the videos discussing the potential PLA, the Chinese invasion of Taiwan, or the blockade of Taiwan, and what kind of things could happen. And this used to be a fairly niche subject. Mostly channels that were discussing geopolitics and military affairs were into this thing, like Task and Purpose, the Covert Cabal, the Caspian Report, you name it, Peter Zion. But lately, it seems like everybody and their brother has jumped on the topic, and yeah, some totally random channels are covering it now. And I thought, okay, why don't I share my view on this thing? The bikes are gone. Oh, maybe that one. No, someone's taking it. Out of service. So this happens sometimes in the rush hour in the evening. There's not enough bicycles. Maybe she will be leaving this one. No. Yes, I'm gonna have to walk longer than usual. So at the same time, while this trend is happening, the other trend that's been going on is the Western media outlets, news publications, news agencies have been skirting around the topic, and kind of they want to jump on the trend on the topic, but they want to discuss it in the terms that will not rattle China too much. So they keep hedging their bets, keep discussing Taiwan in this elusive language, like self-governed island or territory that China claims, all kinds of BS like this. And this is especially true for the larger, more established entities like BBC, CNN, AP, Reuters, Bloomberg and all. And that's understandable, given that they derive a large portion of their revenue from China coverage, and especially financial and economics coverage, which has to do with China a lot. So they rely on their sources within China, their China offices and all, and it's kind of a sensitive thing for them. I can understand all that. You might be wondering, why am I still here? What am I doing here? Is the invasion threat real? Why haven't I bugged out to a safer location? What do the regular, everyday Taiwanese people think about it? And how the things will unfold, or how the things could unfold, let's say. Let's put it this way. So TLDR first, short answer. So first of all, why I am still here. I'm here for work, mainly for work, for some other personal reasons as well, but mainly for work. And I like being able to work. I hate looking for a job. I guess I could find another job somewhere else, but I find the whole job hunting thing is kind of really counterproductive, especially given the current market environment. You can look up all the videos about the layoffs and such. So I like to be able to work and make money and not go broke. So that's paramount. Eventually, though, I may have to leave, but probably this will not be because of the China threat, I hope. But eventually I think climate change will catch up with me personally, with my personal health and age, and it's just gonna get too hot to survive in a hot and humid location in the longer run. So it could happen at one point. Where's the bicycle? Did I miss one? Okay. And the second question, the invasion threat, I think it is real. It's not an imaginary kind of hypothetical thing. It is real. China has real motives, real capabilities. Maybe not sufficient, but they're growing. More importantly, they have been on the track or moving along the timeline, of kind of pre-kinetic activities, let's put it that way. They're going through the information warfare, cyber warfare, all kinds of stuff that are short of the kinetic phase. And they have definitely escalated their provocations, incursions all around the island. However, it's still not a foregone conclusion. So there's still a high level of a high degree of uncertainty. And if we have the time, I will go into it in a little more detail. Yeah, by the way, I'm just passing by the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park. That's 101. Oh, I already walked like 3 stations worth. So once again, if the threat is real, why I haven't moved on yet? See the first answer? Right now, the trade-off for me personally is in favor of staying. Another question is, in general, sometimes people ask, is Taiwan a dangerous place? As you can see, it's fairly safe. I would say even it's one of the safest places I've ever been to. Yeah. Aside from the China threat and the earthquakes, these are the 2 unique Taiwan specific risks, country risks. But everything else is either just as safe as everywhere or a lot safer. So especially if you can compare it with different places in the developed world, there's very little crime and such. Now, what do the Taiwanese people think about it all? I would say most Taiwanese people don't even think about it all on a daily basis. Most people just think about surviving day by day, doing their business, doing their job, getting their kids to school, stuff like that. or it doesn't really occur to them. There are some times in their life or during the year they are reminded of it, but I'll go into that a little bit later. And finally, how do I think the things are likely to unfold? I would say I don't know, and nobody knows. Anyone who says this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen, is probably lying. There's a whole plethora of scenarios with unknown probability values. So many moving pieces. Oh, actually, I had to make a little stop by the luggage store to look at some interesting suitcases. By the way, Eminent is a Taiwan brand. Now mostly made in China, I think, but the brand is still Taiwanese. So now into a little more detailed answers to the same questions. Number one, why I'm still here, right? So, and it's related to the third question, why I haven't moved. So let's look at them together. Like I said, I will eventually likely move on, and it will more likely have to do with climate change and my personal heat tolerance, or even not so much the heat but humidity tolerance. I find that I can handle dry heat a lot better than humidity. So yeah, eventually it will probably happen. And I'm almost certain, because climate is a thing that is so apparent, so observable, and you can kind of see the facts happening already because it's part of the physical world. Yeah, so it's much more tangible and kind of almost quantifiable. There is, of course, a lot of uncertainty to it, but it's largely due to our limited ability to compute that complexity. In case with a military or geopolitical conflict, complexity is an entirely different level, much higher degree of uncertainty, largely because it not only resides in the physical world, let's say like industrial capacity or some military capabilities, which are pretty like hard facts, but it also resides in the world of socioeconomic factors and human psychology. So it's almost impossible to predict what's going to happen when there's a significant human factor involved. It either happens or doesn't happen, and some things are more likely than the others, but those probability values are extremely difficult to assign. For instance, this complexity is an extremely fluid environment, and these probability values are fluid. They keep shifting, largely because everybody, or in part because everybody is weighing their pros and cons of every imaginable action. So let's say tomorrow China might develop something that makes it more likely for it to win in a potential war, but then the next day, let's say the US and Japan might do something that makes it more costly for China to win in a potential war. So that would probably give them a little pause. So everybody's doing something, and everybody's equation keeps changing. 101, Xinyi Plaza in the back. So I walked all the way from that to Xinyi, almost to the City Hall area. So that's like 4 stations worth of walk. Like I said, the equations keep changing, the values keep changing. A lot of it is human and societal input. By contrast, if this were about the climate situation, there's very little that people, either individually or as the whole societies, the whole countries, can do to change anything in the short run. Yeah, in the long run, we might, the energy transition and all, but in the short run, especially with individual countries, not regional blocks, there's very little we can change about the amount of the emissions. So it's also quantifiable, but like I said, those things are too big to move. The second question, the invasion threat, like I said, it is real. It's not imaginary or hypothetical. China is definitely planning to do something along those lines. They are visibly investing in capabilities. There is documented evidence of them doing those things. Like, for instance, the training sites in Mongolia, simulating the Taiwan government district, Taipei government district, presidential palace and all. They have their floating bridges, the invasion barges. They are also building the helicopter carriers, the amphibious assault craft. So they do all kinds of things. They're doing all kinds of things. However, at the same time, while they're doing all kinds of things, there's all kinds of things happening within China itself, in its economy, in its demographics, and in its political environment. So in the short run, these things do elevate the potential threat, the risk level, for a variety of reasons, which I will not go into. Some other channels have covered that. And in the longer run, though, mid to long term, these factors are actually severely either undermining China's capability to pull it off successfully, or might actually result in the changes that will make the whole invasion thing a moot point. To add to this, financially, economically, demographically even, China might still have a couple of years of opportunity, window of opportunity, to launch something like that. But beyond that, the economic and human cost of such an endeavor probably makes it unfeasible. And in the longer run, when demographics really starts kicking in, I will actually think they will start having trouble keeping on to what they already have, because let's say your population is turning out way smaller than it used to be, but your security cost is pretty high. Your tax base is shrinking, so you can sustain a lot less of the public security apparatus. And we saw that happening in the later years of the Soviet Union, when they basically stopped paying salaries to the police force. Or rather, severely delayed salaries and all, and things just started crumbling down. Of course, such costs will only increase if there is some sort of a regional security arrangement involving the United States, Japan, Australia, especially Philippines, and if it's formalized in some way, not only formalized but kind of operationalized, that would kind of kill most of China's chances for success in this endeavor. So this is also a fluid environment. There's some setbacks, there's some progress. It's kind of one step ahead, two steps back, as usual. So next question was, is it dangerous to live in Taiwan? And I already said that aside from the China political risk and the earthquakes, these two are kind of unique to Taiwan. Everything else is either safer or just as safe as everywhere else, with a couple of caveats. Of course, the earthquake thing, the seismic risk, is pretty much the same as in Japan. However, Japan might have somewhat stronger building standards when it comes to the older building. Taiwan still has too many old decrepit buildings. Compared to the other countries in the region, what else could be? So typhoons wise, it's a bit higher risk than Japan, probably about the same amount as the Philippines. However, the infrastructure is much stronger than in the Philippines, so the impact is very manageable so far. There's one thing that is less discussed but is widely covered locally here, is the traffic situation, traffic safety. And this is an area where Taiwan could make a lot of improvement relatively cheaply. It's mainly about educating the drivers, riders and pedestrians, and you could dramatically increase safety here and reduce the number of fatalities on the roads, which is kind of obscene for a fairly developed country. And virtually everything else, it's probably safer than most countries, even in the West. Social safety and security level is very high. It's kind of fairly obvious. Violent crime almost non-existent. There's some occasional psychos, but it's almost non-existent. And when something bad happens that requires like intervention from bystanders, people do step up. So unlike in China, for instance, people do come together, people do step up and step in and help each other, which is good. It's a fairly healthy society in that regard. Like if I were to collapse in the middle of the road due to the heat fatigue or something, I'm pretty certain that people would stop and help me and call the ambulance and all. Yeah. There is also a fairly decent social security kind of social safety net, which is also open to the foreigners, which is unusual for Asia if you work here legally. So you do get some protections if you are on a long-term work visa or PRC, PRC. You are covered pretty much like everybody else. That wouldn't be the case Let's say Thailand would be very difficult. Other places, I don't know. So even in Singapore, you wouldn't have access to the national health insurance, but in Taiwan you have. I mentioned that most Taiwanese rarely, if ever, think about it. So one time in the year is Hanquan, when people are reminded of this. And this year's the exercise kind of coincides or overlaps with the other one, the Talisman Saber, which is kind of joined US, Australia, some other countries, Japan as well. Exercise, mostly naval amphibious landing kind of thing, off the coast of Australia, I think, New South Wales somewhere. Not to be confused with Rimpak, which is another thing, mostly a naval exercise led by the United States, an even bigger biannual program. If you watch my videos before, you probably already guessed where I have come and why I have come here. Once again, for the doserak, the Korean food. Yeah, I'm craving this thing, the spicy kimchi beef soup and rice. Price is still the same, 200. It's good. Yeah, that's how you do it. Put everything in any soup. I haven't had it for quite a while, so I've been craving it. I haven't had a spicy kimchi for quite a while, so it's good to revisit. And yeah, while I'm still at it, let's think about the final question again. How do I think things are going to unfold in the near future? And like I said, nobody knows. I don't know, nobody knows. There's so many unknowns here. But it does depend on the potential outcomes of several different scenarios. And each of these scenarios has its own potential outcomes. So number one factor is the outcome of the ongoing war, Russia-Ukraine war. So it can go down 3 or 4 different ways, and especially how long does it take to arrive at those outcomes will have an impact. The same was true 3 years ago, and it's possibly even truer now, because the longer this thing draws out, the more certain things become more apparent. The other thing that also has an impact is the direction and the speed of China's own internal processes, which I have already mentioned, the economic ones, but also the ongoing power transition. I think I mentioned this already, but some of the observers that I follow, they're starting to think that Xi might not survive 2025 in all of his 3 leading roles, so something will have to go, and I agree with them. I think he will have to step down, possibly as the head of the Central Military Commission, and there's a bunch of potential outcomes in this regard as well. Specifically, whether or not the new leadership takes any steps towards a meaningful reform. We don't know. Nobody knows. You can only kind of observe some ambiguous indicators. The third factor is the US and the allies, especially Japan's efforts to cement some sort of regional security arrangement. And I used to think that the Philippines were the weakest link and China was targeting them, but now I think the weakest link is kind of Australia. There's a lot of dithering going on among the Australian elites. Yeah, and in addition to these three, there may be any other number of unforeseen scenarios, factors that would be kind of in the realm of the black swan sort of events. So those I will not go into. But even these three are enough to generate a dozen potential scenarios. And some of them might look good for China on the surface, terrible for everybody. And some of them would likely look terrible for China and kind of okayish for everybody else. So there's no way of knowing that at the moment. Anyway, these were my thoughts on the changing, unfolding, fluid situation. Now I'm contemplating either taking the train or walking back home. Yeah.